They said my father left me nothing. The shovel hit metal 3 feet down. Green metal. A bank safe, buried where only dirt should be. The lock was clean. Oiled. Recently moved. Someone had buried this in a hurry. Dakota Rivers knelt in the dirt, staring at the impossible. Her father had died 3 days ago, leaving nothing but unpaid bills and a reputation for poor decisions. Lawyer Ezra Millstone had been clear about that, sliding foreclosure papers across his desk with practiced sympathy. The ranch was worthless. The debt exceeded any value. Even the barn was supposedly falling apart. But the barn wasn't falling apart. Fresh tool marks scored the wooden posts. New bolts secured the support beams. The tractor near the back wall was newer than anything her father had owned when she left for college. Someone had been pouring money into this place while claiming poverty. Dakota brushed soil away from the safe's surface. Professional grade steel, the kind banks used decades ago. 3 combination locks, each dial moving with smooth precision. Fresh oil gleamed on the hinges. This had been moved recently. The disturbed earth around it was loose, not packed like soil that had been undisturbed for years. The floorboards above had been pried up hastily. Nail marks showed where they'd been removed in a rush. Not the careful work of someone with time to plan. Her father had buried this safe recently. Within days, maybe hours of his death. She pulled out her phone to call Ezra, then stopped. If her father had hidden this with his dying breath, he'd had good reason. Maybe opening it would answer questions. Maybe it would create new problems she wasn't ready to face. Dakota studied the combination locks. Her father had been obsessive about dates, always muttering numbers under his breath. She tried her birthday first. The dials clicked through the sequence, but the handle remained locked. Her mother's birthday. Nothing. The date he'd bought the ranch. Still nothing. Then she noticed them. 3 tiny marks scratched into the metal beside the dials. Fresh scratches, made with a nail or small knife. Roman numerals, I, V, and X, 1, 5, and 10. But in what order? And what did they represent? Footsteps crunched across gravel outside. Heavy boots. Deliberate pace. Someone walking with the confidence of belonging here. Dakota's heart hammered as she grabbed a handful of dirt, ready to throw it over the safe. But it was too late. The barn door creaked wider, and Sage Whitmore's weathered silhouette filled the entrance. His eyes swept the interior, taking in the disturbed earth, the partially exposed safe, her dirt-stained hands. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Sage stepped closer, his expression grim. He finally buried it, Sage said quietly. I wondered when he'd move it from the house. Guess he ran out of time to tell you where. Sage knew about the safe, knew where it had been hidden, knew why her father had moved it. Dakota stood slowly, pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. You've seen this safe before, Dakota said. Lived in your father's bedroom closet for 3 years, Sage replied, moving closer. We've been business partners since 2020. Mining operation. Your great-grandfather's old silver claims turned out to be legitimate. His eyes met hers. Your father was scared the last few weeks. Said federal agents had been asking questions around town about unreported mineral sales. Dakota felt the world shift beneath her feet. Mining operation? What mining operation? Sage pulled a small notebook from his shirt pocket, its pages filled with dates, locations, and dollar amounts. Your great-grandfather filed silver claims in 1951, but never registered them officially. Wanted to avoid government attention. Your father found the original paperwork in the attic, and we've been quietly extracting silver for 3 years. The numbers in Sage's notebook were staggering. Regular entries showing silver sales, equipment purchases, land acquisitions. This is where the money came from. The ranch improvements, the new property purchases. Cord was brilliant about it. Sold small amounts to different dealers, never enough to trigger reporting requirements. Used the money to buy land with mineral rights, always planning for your future. Sage closed the notebook. But someone noticed the pattern. Someone started connecting the dots. A truck engine rumbled in the distance, growing louder as it approached the ranch. Both Dakota and Sage froze. The sound was wrong. Too powerful for a neighbor's pickup. Too official. Sage's face went pale. They found us faster than I expected. Who found us? Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. FinCEN. They investigate unreported mineral sales. Money laundering through property purchases. Sage was already moving toward the safe. Your father got spooked 2 weeks ago when agents interviewed 3 different silver dealers he'd sold to. That's when he moved the safe out here and buried it. The engine sound grew closer, tires crunching on gravel as the vehicle turned into the ranch driveway. Dakota looked at the safe, then at Sage's worried expression. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We know about the silver sales. We know about the property purchases. Surrender the records voluntarily and avoid felony charges." "Dakota," Sage said urgently. "That safe contains 3 years of mining records, property deeds, and enough evidence to prove everything was legitimate family inheritance. But if FinCEN gets their hands on it first, they'll freeze everything while they investigate. You'll lose it all to legal fees." The truck was pulling up outside now, doors slamming, multiple footsteps on gravel, moving with military precision toward the barn. Dakota stared at the combination locks. Her father's Roman numeral scratches suddenly making sense. Not dates, not anniversaries, something else entirely. Something only she would understand. The FinCEN agents were at the barn door. No time for hesitation. Dakota dropped to her knees and studied her father's Roman numeral scratches. I, V, X. Not dates or property markers. Something personal. Something only she would know. "Dakota, what did your father always call you when you were little?" Sage whispered urgently, watching the door. The memory hit like lightning. His little number 1. I for one. Her first birthday party where he'd sung about his number 1 girl. Her 5th birthday when she'd insisted on exactly 5 candles, not 4 plus 1 to grow on. Her 10th birthday when he'd promised her 10 silver dollars that he'd never been able to afford. 1, 5, 10. She spun the first dial to 1, the second to 5, the third to 10. All 3 locks clicked open simultaneously. "Federal agents, exit the barn with your hands visible." Dakota grabbed the safe's handle and pulled. The massive door swung open, revealing neat stacks of documents, bundles of cash, and something that made her gasp. Not gold bars, raw silver nuggets in canvas bags, each tagged with extraction dates and locations. But it was the leather portfolio that mattered most. Mining permits, geological surveys, and a thick folder labeled Legal Documentation, Great-Grandfather's Claims. Everything needed to prove the operation was legitimate family inheritance, not criminal enterprise. Sage was already stuffing silver nuggets into his jacket. "The secondary location is my place. Hidden room in my basement. Your father prepared for this exact scenario." Dakota grabbed the legal portfolio and as much cash as her pockets could hold. The mining permits were everything. Without them, she was just another suspect in a federal investigation. With them, she could prove 3 generations of legitimate family mining rights. "Last warning. Exit immediately or we enter with force." "Back exit," Sage pointed toward the rear wall where loose boards created an emergency escape. "My truck's behind the equipment shed." They squeezed through the gap just as the front doors burst open. Heavy boots thundered across the wooden floor. Flashlight beams swept the barn interior. Dakota heard shouting as agents discovered the open safe and missing contents. Sage's truck was hidden exactly where he'd said, camouflaged behind rusted farm equipment. They climbed in silently, and Sage used momentum to start the engine, rolling downhill before engaging the clutch. No headlights, no engine noise. By the time they reached the main road, they were invisible in the evening darkness. "How long do we have?" Dakota asked, clutching the legal portfolio. "Depends how fast they connect Sage Whitmore to Cornelius Rivers. Your father kept our partnership off official records, but FinCEN has resources." Sage took a sharp turn onto a dirt road. "The good news is everything in that portfolio proves the mining operation was legal. Great-grandfather's claims are legitimate, properly documented, just never officially registered." Dakota's phone buzzed with a new message. "Ms. Rivers, we have your ranch surrounded. Hiding evidence of financial crimes is a federal felony. Return the mining records and we can discuss reduced charges." But looking at the legal documents in her lap, Dakota realized she wasn't hiding evidence of crimes. She was protecting proof of her innocence. Sage's house was a modest ranch home 20 miles north, but the basement told a different story. Behind a false wall, he'd constructed a sophisticated document storage room with fireproof safes and professional-grade file cabinets. "Your father insisted on this," Sage explained, activating hidden lighting. "Said if FinCEN ever came sniffing around, we'd need a secure location for the legal documentation." Dakota spread the contents of the leather portfolio across a table. What she found made her heart race. Her great-grandfather hadn't just filed mining claims, He'd been methodical about documentation, hand-drawn maps showing silver vein locations, assay reports from the 1950s confirming rich deposits, and most importantly, a legal opinion from a mining attorney stating that unregistered claims were still valid if the family could prove continuous ownership of the land. Sage, look at this. Dakota held up a geological survey from 1952. Great-grandfather had professional confirmation of silver deposits worth millions, even at 1950s prices. He just kept it secret to avoid government interference. Sage studied the documents. Smart man. Registration would have meant taxes, federal oversight, environmental regulations. He kept it in the family and passed the knowledge down. Dakota's phone rang. Not a text this time. A call from Agent Sarah Mitchell. According to the caller ID. Ms. Rivers, I'm the lead investigator on your father's case. We need to talk. Dakota put the call on speaker. About what? About the mining operation you and your father have been running without proper permits. About the unreported income from silver sales. About the property purchases made with laundered money. The mining operation was legal, Dakota said, looking at the documentation spread before her. Family inheritance spanning 3 generations. Then you won't mind returning the evidence so we can verify that claim. Dakota studied a letter in her great-grandfather's handwriting, dated 1951. For my descendants. The silver is yours by right of blood and sweat. Never let the government steal what we work to build. Agent Mitchell, I'll make you a deal. Meet me at the county courthouse tomorrow morning with a mining rights attorney present. I'll provide all documentation proving legal family ownership. In exchange, you return my father's property and close the investigation. Silence on the line. Then, Ms. Rivers, you're not in a position to make demands. Actually, I am. Because every document in this portfolio proves my family's legal right to mine that silver. And if you'd done your homework, you'd know that unregistered mining claims are still valid in Texas if the family maintained continuous ownership of the land. Sage was grinning, pointing to a specific legal document. Your great-grandfather was smarter than we realized. He registered the claims under a family trust, legal, binding, and designed specifically to protect against federal seizure. Agent Mitchell's voice was strained. Courthouse, 9 a.m. Come alone. I'll bring my attorney, Dakota replied, and Sage Whitmore, my business partner. She hung up and looked at the documents that would either save her inheritance or destroy it. But for the first time since finding the safe, Dakota felt like she was holding all the cards. Dakota spent the night studying her great-grandfather's documentation, and what she discovered changed everything. The family trust wasn't just about silver mining. It included water rights, mineral rights, and something called subsurface extraction privileges for 6 different properties across 3 counties. Sage, look at this contract, Dakota said, pointing to a yellow document dated 1953. Great-grandfather didn't just find silver. He negotiated exclusive rights to extract anything valuable from the subsurface of these properties. Oil, natural gas, rare earth minerals, everything. Sage examined the contract, his eyes widening. Dakota, do you understand what this means? That land outside town where they're planning the new shopping development. Your family trust owns the subsurface rights. Any construction that requires deep foundations would need your permission. The implications hit like a thunderbolt. Her father hadn't just been selling silver to prepare for her future. He'd been sitting on mineral rights worth potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, waiting for the right time to reveal them. The shopping development, the highway expansion, the new industrial park. All of it required construction on land where her family controlled what lay beneath the surface. Dakota's phone buzzed with a text from Agent Mitchell. We've discovered additional properties connected to your family trust. This investigation is expanding. Legal representation is strongly advised. They're scared, Sage said, reading over her shoulder. FinCEN thought they were investigating simple tax evasion. Now they're realizing your family legally owns mineral rights that could affect major development projects. Dakota pulled up county planning records on her phone, cross-referencing them with the properties listed in her great-grandfather's trust. Every major development planned for the next 5 years intersected with land where her family held subsurface rights. The shopping center, the new hospital, the expanded airport runway, all of it required her permission to proceed. That's why the federal investigation started, Dakota realized. Someone in the development community discovered our family trust and wanted FinCEN to seize the rights before construction begins. If they could prove the mining operation was illegal, they could invalidate the trust and clear the way for development. Sage was already pulling up property values on his laptop. Conservative estimate, based on current development plans. Your subsurface rights are worth at least $50 million. Maybe more if they find oil or natural gas during construction. A car pulled into Sage's driveway, headlights sweeping across the basement windows. Both of them froze, listening. Single vehicle. Engine running. Someone staying in the car rather than approaching the house. Dakota peered through the window blind. Black sedan with government plates. Agent Mitchell, probably. Watching. Waiting. Making sure Dakota didn't disappear before the morning meeting. She knows we're here, Dakota said. Good. Let her watch. We've got 8 hours to prepare for the biggest legal battle this county has ever seen. Sage was already organizing documents into presentation folders. But Dakota, you need to understand something. If we prove the trust is legitimate, you'll become one of the wealthiest landowners in Texas overnight. People have been killed for less. The weight of that statement settled over the basement. Dakota looked at the documents that would either make her rich or get her killed. Her father had died protecting this secret. Now it was her turn to decide whether the inheritance was worth the risk. Dawn broke gray and cold over Sage's property. Dakota had managed 3 hours of sleep before her phone started ringing. Attorney Marcus Webb, the mining rights specialist Sage had contacted overnight, was calling with news that changed their entire strategy. Ms. Rivers, I've reviewed the documentation your partner sent me. Your family trust isn't just legitimate, it's ironclad. But there's something else you need to know before we meet with FinCEN. Dakota put the call on speaker. What kind of something else? 3 weeks ago, Meridian Development Corporation filed a lawsuit challenging the validity of historical mineral rights in your county. They're specifically targeting family trusts established before 1960, claiming they don't meet modern environmental compliance standards. Sage cursed under his breath. Meridian owns the shopping center project. They're trying to invalidate all old mineral rights so they can develop without permission. Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting, Webb continued. Meridian hired a private investigation firm to research property ownership patterns. That firm has connections to former federal agents who specialize in financial investigations. I believe someone used FinCEN to attack your family trust as part of Meridian's legal strategy. The pieces clicked into place. The federal investigation wasn't about tax evasion. It was corporate warfare. Meridian needed Dakota's mineral rights invalidated to proceed with their billion-dollar development project. So they'd manufactured a federal case to seize the family trust assets. Can we prove that? Dakota asked. With what you've shown me, yes. But we need to be smart about this. FinCEN has legitimate authority to investigate unreported income. Even if their investigation was initiated by corporate interests, they still have a case if your father failed to report silver sales. Dakota studied the mining records Sage had maintained. Every silver extraction was documented. Every sale was recorded. But the federal reporting requirements were complex, and her father had been operating under the assumption that family trust activities fell below reporting thresholds. How much unreported income are we talking about? She asked Sage. 3 years of silver sales. Maybe $400,000 total. Spread across 36 months, it averages about $11,000 per month. Technically above the federal reporting threshold for mineral sales. Webb's voice was grave. That's enough for FinCEN to freeze all trust assets pending investigation. Even if we eventually prove legitimacy, you could be tied up in court for years while Meridian proceeds with development. A new text arrived on Dakota's phone. This time from an unknown number. Meridian Development offers $500,000 cash for immediate transfer of all subsurface rights on county parcels 447, 523, 891, 1203, 1445, and 1672. Accept this generous offer and avoid federal prosecution. $500,000 for rights worth $50 million, Sage said, reading over her shoulder. They're not even trying to hide what this is about. Dakota looked at the federal agent's car still parked in the driveway, then at the legal documentation that proved her family's legitimate ownership of mineral rights worth a fortune. In 3 hours, she'd be sitting across from Agent Mitchell in a courthouse, fighting for an inheritance that could change her life forever. But first, she had a phone call to make to Meridian Development Corporation. It was time to find out exactly how far they were willing to go to steal her family's legacy. Dakota called Meridian Development directly before leaving for the courthouse. The receptionist transferred her to James Morrison, Senior Vice President of Land Acquisition, who answered on the first ring as if he'd been waiting for her call. Ms. Rivers, I'm glad you're being reasonable about this situation. I'm not calling to accept your offer. Mr. Morrison, I'm calling to inform you that I know exactly what you've done. You manipulated a federal investigation to try stealing my family's mineral rights. Silence on the line. Then Morrison's voice. Colder now. That's a serious accusation. I hope you have proof. Attorney Marcus Webb has documented connections between your private investigators and the FinCEN agents who initiated this case. We have evidence that your company specifically targeted family trusts to clear development obstacles. Even if that were true, which I'm not admitting, it doesn't change your legal situation. You still face federal charges for unreported mining income. Dakota looked at Sage, who was holding up a document they discovered an hour earlier. A federal compliance letter her father had filed 2 years ago, requesting guidance on family trust reporting requirements. The response letter clearly stated that trust mining activities below $500,000 annually were exempt from individual reporting requirements. Actually, Mr. Morrison, my father did comply with federal reporting requirements. We have documentation proving FinCEN provided written guidance that our mining activities fell below mandatory reporting thresholds. Your manufactured investigation has no legal basis. Another pause. Morrison was clearly consulting with someone off the phone. Ms. Rivers, perhaps we can reach a mutually beneficial arrangement. Meridian is prepared to increase our offer significantly. How significantly? $2 million. Cash. Immediate transfer upon signing mineral rights waivers. Dakota nearly laughed. $2 million for rights worth $50 million minimum. Mr. Morrison, let me make you a counteroffer. Meridian can proceed with development by paying fair market value for subsurface extraction rights. Based on current property values and development scope, that would be approximately $15 million per parcel. That's impossible. No development project could absorb those costs. Then you should have researched mineral rights before committing to development locations. My family has owned these rights legally for 70 years. Attorney Webb was already at the courthouse when Dakota and Sage arrived. Agent Mitchell sat across from him at a conference table, surrounded by boxes of federal investigation files. But Webb was smiling, which Dakota took as a positive sign. Agent Mitchell has reviewed our documentation, Webb said as they sat down. FinCEN is prepared to close their investigation with no charges filed, provided we can resolve the reporting discrepancy. What kind of resolution? Dakota asked. Agent Mitchell looked frustrated. Payment of estimated taxes on unreported income, plus penalties. Approximately $60,000 total. In exchange, we close the case and return all seized materials. Dakota looked at the settlement papers. $60,000 to close a federal investigation and secure legal ownership of mineral rights worth $50 million. It seemed too easy. There's one more condition, Agent Mitchell continued. You agree to proper reporting protocols for all future mining activities. No more family trust exemptions. Agreed. But I want the federal determination in writing that our historical mining activities were legally compliant under family trust provisions. Done. Dakota signed the settlement papers, ending 3 days of terror with the stroke of a pen. But as they left the courthouse, her phone buzzed with a text from Morrison. This isn't over. Meridian has other options. 2 weeks later, Dakota stood in the same barn where everything had started, but now she wasn't alone. Attorney Webb, a county surveyor, and representatives from 3 different mining companies surrounded the hole where the safe had been buried. The bidding war for extraction rights to her family's silver deposits had exceeded even Webb's optimistic projections. Current offer stands at $12 million for a 5-year extraction lease, Webb announced, with guaranteed minimum royalties of $2 million annually, regardless of extraction volume. Dakota studied the contracts. Her father had been right to keep the family mining operations small and secret. Large-scale extraction would be worth exponentially more than the careful, limited mining he and Sage had conducted. The silver deposits were richer and more extensive than even her great-grandfather had realized. Sage emerged from the mine shaft they'd opened using professional equipment. Geological survey confirms your great-grandfather barely scratched the surface. The main silver vein extends at least 300 feet deeper and runs under 2 adjacent properties your family trust also controls. What about Meridian Development? Dakota asked. They withdrew their lawsuit yesterday, Webb replied with satisfaction. Apparently, someone leaked information about their connection to the federal investigation. The County Planning Commission is now reviewing all of Meridian's development permits for potential fraud. Dakota's phone rang. James Morrison again, but this time his tone was completely different. Defeated. Ms. Rivers, Meridian is prepared to negotiate fairly for subsurface rights. We understand we approached this situation inappropriately. Mr. Morrison, my answer hasn't changed. Fair market value for extraction rights or find another location for your development projects. What would you consider fair market value? Dakota looked at the mining contracts in her hands. $25 million per parcel for permanent subsurface rights. Non-negotiable. Take it or leave it. Morrison's sharp intake of breath was audible. That's more than the entire development budget. Then you have a business decision to make. My family has waited 70 years to realize the full value of these mineral rights. I'm not accepting pennies on the dollar because you failed to research property ownership before committing to development. She hung up and turned to Webb. How long before the mining operations are fully operational? 6 months for environmental permits and equipment installation. After that, you're looking at steady income of approximately $5 million annually for the next 20 years. Minimum. Dakota walked to the barn entrance and looked out across the ranch her father had pretended to struggle maintaining. Every building, every fence, every piece of equipment had been secretly paid for with silver money, carefully invested to create the infrastructure needed for large-scale mining operations. Her phone buzzed with a text from the county bank president. Ms. Rivers, we'd like to discuss consolidating your accounts and providing private wealth management services for your family trust assets. 3 weeks ago, she'd driven here expecting to clean out worthless junk before selling the property for scrap value. Now she owned mineral rights worth over $50 million, with guaranteed annual income that would make her one of the wealthiest individuals in the county. They said her father left her nothing, but buried beneath the barn floor had been proof of the most valuable inheritance imaginable, a family legacy of silver mining that would secure her financial future for generations. Dakota pulled out her phone one final time and deleted the foreclosure papers from her email. The ranch wasn't going anywhere. Neither was she. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable story, where destiny and courage collide in ways you never expected. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you more stories like these. Your support means everything to us.